And so I want to call to order this meeting of the Monroe County Commissioners. I will note for the record that Commissioner Jones and I are present. So we'll start with the Commissioner's public statement read by Commissioner Jones. Hit the red.
Okay, I haven't been trained on these. We, the Monroe County Board of Commissioners, renew our commitment to welcome and protect the rights of all people regardless of age, race, color, creed, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, marital status, economic status, and national origin. And we affirm the right of every person to live peacefully and without fear, and we will fight and resist at every step discrimination and harmful policies, whatever their source. We also stand in support of our county public school systems, both RBB and MCCSC.
Thank you. Also, I'd like to ask TSD if Dustin Dillard is one of the attendees, that he be promoted to panelist.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I couldn't hear the name.
I'm sorry, if Dustin Dillard is one of the attendees, could he please be promoted to panelist? Thank you. At this time, we'll ask for department updates. We'll start with Penny Cotto, the Health Department.
Good morning to you. The updated Indiana Department of Health dashboard will launch today. You know, we've been talking about them revising that. The metrics map that we have been so accustomed to seeing will be replaced with the CDC community level map. And that map, we do remain low. Our community level is low, and it's low across the state of Indiana. We did observe a small increase in cases this past week. You'll recall, however, that the new measures are not only based on cases per 100,000, but also on hospital capacity, which does remain good. Recommendations for low areas are to stay up to date on your vaccines and to get tested if you have symptoms or you know that you've been exposed to somebody with COVID-19. Masks are still currently required on public transportation per federal order and in most medical facilities. In regards to BA2, the Omicron variant that has been being talked about a lot lately, that is about 35% of what we are seeing in Indiana currently, and it is about half of what we're seeing nationally currently. So it is becoming the predominant variant that we're seeing across the nation. A couple of reminders for April 1st. The Gravity site will close after April 1st. So this is the last week for the Gravity site out on off Curry Pike to be open. If you need a PCR test, they will be open through Friday at 4 p.m. And our public health clinic, beginning on April 1st, will no longer be using the state's appointment system. They will simply be making appointments as they do for all of their vaccines. So you can call them to make that appointment. And the public health clinic is located on Miller Drive, and their phone number is 812-353-3244. So you would call them for an appointment, whether it's COVID vaccine or whether your child needs their MMWR. You may have also heard recently that the FDA has approved additional booster dose for people who are 50 and over. And I just want to make clarification that this is not a recommendation at this time. They have approved it as an option. So people who are 50 and over and are concerned could get that additional booster dose, but at this time, there is no recommendation for that. Some meetings are planned later this month, next week, but the ACIP committee for the CDC has not yet scheduled a meeting to discuss that. And the most important thing that I would say is just stay up to date with your vaccines, regardless of what they are. And if you haven't yet gotten your COVID-19 vaccine, please consider starting that vaccination. And that's what I have for you today.
Do you have any comment?
Just that it's kind of exciting to hear that maybe we're heading towards some kind of normal again.
I hope so.
And I understand from what I heard today that it's suggested that you not get this second booster for at least 4 months after your previous one. Is that correct?
There are still the same timelines. I think it's 5 months between your dose and a booster, but it will depend a little bit on the circumstance for individuals. So it is a good discussion to have with your healthcare provider and see if it makes sense for you.
Thank you. Okay, let's go now to Mr. Eric Evans.
Good morning. I'm Eric Evans. I'm the Chief Technology Officer. I'm here to talk about and update you on the project that we've been doing out at what we're currently calling the Napa building. I think we need to come up with some other rebranding of that. But anyway, as you know, I believe early voting is starting out there next week. My network team completed putting that building on the county's wide area network yesterday. So we're ready to go. What that basically means is that the folks that are working there in the building have the ability to access all their files and stuff as if they were sitting in their office that they normally work out of. It'll also allow the public who are waiting in line to do early voting to access our guest Wi-Fi so that they can surf the web and spend their time in line researching the candidates, you know, how any responsible voter would be. So anyway, this was a kind of complicated project that became more complicated because the timeline for it was compressed, and it was combined with the chip shortages that the market has right now. Makes it very hard to get networking gear. So we ended up having to get pretty creative and reuse equipment that we had in stock. So as such, we were able to get the building fully wired and up and running on the network for well under $10,000, probably closer to about $5,000. So I also wanted to take a minute here to give credit to my two network guys. A lot of the end users don't get to see them. We keep them locked up in the corner, and they're the ones that keep things moving smoothly for all 800 users at Monroe County. So tech services, I prepared a slide if you could put that up. I want to introduce you to Ben and Kevin, two heroes for a digital age. These are our network guys. These are the guys that keep the data flowing. Kevin has been with the county almost as long as I've directed the tech services. Him and I have seen many crises and weathered many serious situations. Ben actually came January of 2020. He moved here from Vermont, relocated from Vermont to take this job with us, and then the whole place descended into chaos. And I've never known anyone to more gamely step forward and just, you know, he just jumped in and did the job. So I just want to introduce these guys to you because you don't generally interact with them, and they are quality employees.
Do you have any comment?
Yes, thank you so much for your diligent work at the Napa building. It's a good thing that you are so creative and that you're here with us. I would also like to thank Ben and was it Kevin for all they've done to keep the county still functioning during this very chaotic time. That's been very highly appreciated.
Yeah, we've faced many challenges through COVID, and I know that your department has made everything possible to keep things going. I mean, changing to Zoom, changing to all kinds of things that we've done. you guys have just bounced with it. It's incredible. Thank you so much. And thanks for getting this ready. It was time critical and you managed to take care of it. So thank you to you, Mr. Evans, and to Ben and to Kevin. Are there anything else? Are there any other department updates? Ms. Ridge, did you have anything for us? Okay, all right, just double checking. Okay, so let's move on then to public comment. This is for items not on the agenda. You will have 3 minutes, and with 30 seconds left, there will be a tone played by TV. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, is there any public comment from people here in the Nat U Hill room? Seeing none, is there anyone who's dialed in on Zoom who would like to make public comment for something not on the agenda? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
Move approval of the minutes for March 23rd, 2022.
Second. Did you have any corrections or additions?
No, I didn't.
I didn't either. So call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Next item.
Move approval of the claims docket, accounts payable, March 30th, 2022.
Second. And do we have Mr. Miller? There he is.
Good morning, Commissioners. The total for claims was $1,743,780.96. As far as the larger expense items are concerned, $789,861.27 was for Washington Township Water for utility construction, Sample Road Phase 2 water line relocation. $298,642.91 was for food and beverage tax distribution for February, and $200,240 was for Farmers Properties LLC, purchase right-of-way parcel 9, Fullerton Pike Phase 3, permanent and temporary right-of-way, damages and administrative settlement.
Thank you. Any comment?
Yeah, I'm just very pleased to hear that we're finally getting that water line in Washington Township moved. That's
Absolutely.
been quite an effort.
Might add to that, I know it's a huge cost, but it's 80% reimbursable through NDOT. So
You did it again. Thank you. Wow. Okay. I have no comment, and so call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Good to see you.
Good seeing you too.
I will note for the record that we have reports from Mr. Saudi from Weights and Measures. That was for middle of February through the middle of March. And we have bid opening for Highway Department.
yeah, we have actually, this is for a relocation for the highway department that's located downtown to the highway garage on Kirby Road. So it's a renovation for that. We received 2 bids, Fox Construction and Building Associates. So. The first one is Fox Construction. So the base bid, fixed amount bid is $252,200. We also have a site work alternative for additional parking, and that's at a cost of $70,990. And Building Associates Incorporated. The fixed bid amount is $277,000. The site work alternative for the parking lot is $62,870. So these will be reviewed by our legal department. And then I would anticipate that if everything's in order, then we would award it possibly next Wednesday's meeting.
It'll also be reviewed by our architect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, you can't get much more transparent than that in terms of opening a public meeting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So let's move on to new business. Commissioner Jones?
Move to approve ordinance 2022-03, amendment to Monroe County zoning ordinance, chapter 802 zones and permitted uses.
Second, Ms. Nestor Jones. Thank you.
Okay, so this first ordinance amendment is 2022-03. It's an amendment to chapter 802, which is our zones and permitted uses. The use that you are reviewing today in the packet is for a scrap metal processing facility. This use is currently not permitted in chapter 802. The reason for this text amendment is because there's currently a gap in our ordinance because scrap metal recycling is not considered solid waste by IDEM or the solid waste district. So you've heard this 2 other times today. So I just wanted to give you an update that we made an edit from the March 16th commissioners meeting, and that was to add an exclusion for military munitions to the definition. So I'll go ahead and preview the ordinance text with that exclusion in there. So no other additions have been made since March 16th other than the military munitions. We went ahead and added the definition into it's actually a federal definition into our definition so that as opposed to staff having to kind of go and find each new definition each time, it will reference it so that if this definition becomes outdated, we can actually go with the amended version. But for clarity's sake, in the interim, this definition is included as well. So I also want to make a note here. So this scrap metal processing facility is a use that is defined under the Indiana Code. And so to that definition, we've made several changes to it to have exclusions to it. The petitioner for the next case after this is for a rezone to potentially utilize this use. But what you're reviewing right now is a text amendment that affects the entire county. This would only be permitted in the heavy industrial zoning districts, of which there are about 16 right now. But I do want to make a note that this is for the entire county, and that, you know, as we make more amendments and exclusions to this use and get a little bit further and further away from the Indiana Code, it does become a little bit more difficult for people to either utilize or for us to explain, just because there is that difference between the state code and maybe what other jurisdictions are allowing versus what Monroe County is allowing. So that's perfectly allowable, but I just want to let you know that some of these exclusions do start to narrow down what can and can't be done. And ultimately, it's a decision as to whether this use is appropriate in the county. So I can take any questions that you have.
Yes. Is this actually a use that's needed in every county? Has there been a lot of demand for a use like this?
The first request for this use was late last year. So to that point, we do not have any other facilities that do this in Monroe County. I'm not sure if it's a use that will be continued to be demanded for, or if it's just something that recently came up and maybe there won't be other requests that happen in the future. So I'm not sure. I do know there's other facilities in nearby counties.
In the other counties, are they allowing munitions and all of that?
That's a good question. I will have to look into some of the other counties that have this particular use to see if they have any exclusions, but I do know that some counties just, I believe, utilize the state reference of the definition, which would not exclude military munitions, but I'm not sure for specific counties.
Yes. If we were to approve this and someone wanted to change the exclusions, what kind of process would that require?
So in order to allow someone to utilize the scrap metal processing facility, but if they cannot meet the definition, it would actually involve them doing either a text amendment or what's called a use variance, which is extremely difficult to get from the Board of Zoning Appeals. So the proper method would actually be to go back through the text amendment process and change the definition.
And does that happen very often?
No.
Thank you.
I had a couple of questions, and I'm sorry, I don't think of these things all at once. I apologize to you. But does this kind of processing facility allow for cutting of the metal and crushing of the metal? Do you know?
So it does exclude, it says excluding Hulk crushers, which are sort of like very large equipment that actually crush and compact material. I know that for the particular use that is after this petition, we've talked about their business model. But I do think that there would be some allowance of crushing under this definition.
I think also one of the things that has come to light is that we've seen instances where some of the metal processing facilities have fires that start. It's true up in Indianapolis. It's true down in Bedford. So I guess I'm concerned about those kinds of things as well happening here. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and open this up for public comment. And I believe that Chief Dillard had some comments to make. Chief, are you there?
He was.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this. So the fire district's community risk chief and our fire marshal have both expressed concerns with the water supply at this location. And specifically with this type of industry in general. We're looking to rezone this to a heavy industry, regardless of what business were to go in here. Could create us problems long-term if businesses turn over and other businesses that fit the criteria to be only in these heavy industry zones continue to move in this location. So water is the biggest issue. The businesses that are permitted to operate in these zones are also some of the largest water consumers for fire suppression. So there's a hydrant near this location at the City of Bloomington wastewater facility, but the most recent flow rate was just about 600 gallons per minute, which is probably about a fourth of what would be needed for a fire of this type. There are some additional hydrants ranging between 1 mile and 2 miles away. One of those is on East Dillman, which would require our apparatus to cross both lanes of 37, cross the dangerous intersection at Old State Road 37 or Dillman Road. And the next location would require them to cross the southbound lane of 37, go north on 37, and then hit the hydrant near Lighthouse Christian Academy, which is roughly 2 miles away. So we ran some numbers to see what it would require for us to get the needed fire flow running a tanker. And we have calculated that it would take approximately 12 water tenders with minimum of 1,500 gallon tanks, along with using the hydrant there at CBU to get the 2,000 to 2,500 gallons per minute that we feel would be necessary for this. Another issue with this location for the fire department is just to the west of the location, there's a single lane 9-ton weight limit bridge. So our egress and entering of this location would be restricted to entering from the east, which would require all traffic to cross those dangerous intersections of the highway. Without adequate water within a reasonable distance, our trucks are carrying 500 to 1,500 feet of supply line. This is just to me, it's a substantial risk with putting that many apparatus on the roadway, moving in unison to provide the necessary water. So we really would need the water that would be required to suppress these fires in that immediate area. I took a look at some of the reports from some fires in Bedford at a similar facility, and 2 of those fires took between 8 and 9 hours. There were 3 hydrants in the immediate area, but they still had to use a relay pumper, which means they went to a hydrant that was a little bit further away, and then that truck pumped water to trucks that were on site. And even with having those 3 hydrants, it still required 5 to 7 fire trucks and over a dozen firefighters. So, this is a time-consuming, labor-intensive type of fire, which means that for a short time, fire district stations would be out of service and committed to this location and unable to respond to some other emergencies. We'd be able to bring personnel in and backfill those stations, but that takes time, it takes overtime, and it's not ideal. The district did respond to those fires in Bedford. Our hazmat team went down and provided some air sampling because the smoke and whatnot often has a lot of health concerns. So, we have issues with the lack of water supply and the burden that could be placed on the county in general as far as fire protection.
Thank you. I believe that you were talking about both the issues that are coming before us today with this. So right now we're talking just about the general ordinance to allow scrap metal processing facilities. So that is sort of a general thing, not to one specific site. But what you're indicating is that those sites are difficult if a fire breaks out.
That's correct. In any area that doesn't have immediate water, would definitely not be a recommendation of the fire district to allow for scrap metal processing. These fires are complicated. There's layers upon layers of void spaces. So you start flowing water from the top, but it's going to require firefighters to go in, remove metal, bring in heavy equipment to move piles of metal. And, it requires a lot of water, causes a lot of water runoff. And without having water in the immediate area, we wouldn't support any facility at any location in the county without the water.
Thank you. Now, so open it up to general comments. In public, anybody here, sir? Please identify yourself.
I'm Larry Parsons and representing Bedford Recycling, and speaking to, there are 2 issues, the ordinance change and then also our request for rezoning. And speaking to the ordinance change that you got, there is a need because you currently have 2 recycling operations in the city of Bloomington currently. You've had them for 20 years, and the fire issues and all the things that have been brought up, you haven't had at those facilities because they're not scrap metal processing facilities. They are facilities that are set up to buy scrap metal. They put it in a truck and they transfer it to another location for processing. And with reference to the Bedford fires, we are a scrap metal processing facility in Bedford, Indiana. And we have much equipment to process, and it does generate fires and explosions. And we actually had a letter from the chief of police, chief of the fire department sent up to you. We have a similar operation to what we would have in Bloomington is in Mitchell at this point. And in 14 years of operation, there's never has been an explosion or a fire. When you're just buying metal, you're not processing metal, you're not torching metal, you're not crushing metal, you're not shredding metal, you're not generating piles of material or sparks or anything else to get them to start fires. You don't have fires. The issue for this change in ordinance that Jackie's put forward and the way that they have it conditioned, there's no possibility that anybody could come in and process scrap metal in that location. And because of that, this change to the ordinance to add it, you fill a void in Monroe County. You currently again have 2 operations, basically the same as what we're looking to do, but this operation is in a better location, going to be designed from the ground up It'll be more environmentally friendly than any of the operations that you have. It's located outside of residential areas, and there is no danger of fire or explosions because there is no processing of ferrous metals at that operation. All the non-ferrous processing would be done inside of a building, and it's not the type of operation that generates fires. And we've been doing this for 14 years in Mitchell, and per the fire chief, not one fire. And he explains why Bedford would have fires. There's no validity to the thought that there would be fires in a recycling facility, as Jackie has his outline. And to that ordinance, that's what I would speak to. There is no danger of fires, and you need some place to recycle scrap metal where you have material thrown out all along the highway and all over the place. And currently it's a environmentally friendly, it's cheaper to produce metal from scrap. It's a good thing for Monroe County to have these types of operations, and you need a ordinance to cover that.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons. I see that we have someone, we have a couple people that are on Zoom. Who was first in line, please? We can't see who the attendees are, so maybe if you could switch that over, TST. Ms. Clemens.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, my name is Margaret Clements, and I appreciate all of the efforts that you're making to seriously consider this proposed change to the zoning in that area. And my concern really is for the environment and its and the proposed location of this metal processing facility near the water table. There had been a mineral extraction facility right nearby where this site is proposed, and the water table is exposed. And as we know, the water table is quite complex in Bloomington and in Monroe County. And with Monroe County's legacy of having, I think we have at least 3 Superfund sites in our area where the PCB contamination lives forever. We are at risk, I believe, to placing at risk our population, our water and drinking supply, et cetera. A recent GAO report says that over 60% of the Superfund sites in Indiana are at higher and heightened risk of contamination because of climate change. And with the flooding events that we've seen and with the proximity to our water supply, I think the risk is too high for our community. And I would really urge you to vote no on this particular proposed rezone. And I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. I want to remind people at this point, we're talking about the zoning ordinance on whether or not to allow scrap metal processing facilities within our heavy industrial use. There's a second person that has their hand raised. And if TSD, if you could show us who the attendees are, that would be appreciated. That way we can see whose hand is raised. Thank you. Is this Mr. Cranley who wishes to speak?
Yes, ma'am. This is Mark Cranley for Republic Services. I have spoken previously regarding the proposed use of both ordinances, but I am going to limit my comments just to the proposed scrapyard use. From our position would be that it creates greater dangers than what's being represented to you by the owner. And one of the things that really ought to be considered here is the fact that you already have an ordinance in place to deal with solid waste within Monroe County. The argument being made by the owner here that this isn't solid waste. The only reason they say that is because they contend that they're going to be paying for scrap metal brought in. But you were just told a moment ago that this type of metal that's thrown about on the highways or on the side of the road. So if you look at Ordinance 360, which is the ordinance very carefully deliberated upon ordinance. It sets out when a solid waste facility can be put in within Monroe County. The ordinance 360-1 refers back to the state's definition of solid waste. And I just want to make sure this is in front of the commissioners. That state definition is any garbage, refuse, sludge from a waste treatment plant, sludge from a water supply plant, sludge from an air, skip the air, other discarded material, including solid, liquid, semi-solid, or containing gaseous material resulting from industrial, commercial, mining, agricultural operations, or from community activity. So any garbage or refuse or things thrown aside is already covered by your ordinance 360. Satisfied that. I think adding a recycling use, scrapyard use is in direct contradiction to that, and those should be governed by ordinance 360, not this additional use. Now, with that, I'll stand on the other arguments I've raised in our previous meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Crandley. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, Ms. Jill, and if we could, would you be able to pull up the map that shows the area? I'm curious about I know there's a bit of floodplain there.
Do you want me to bring up all the HI zone sites, or how would you like me to do that for the text amendment?
Okay, yeah, I think I better wait and not ask that quite yet.
Okay. Well, we can look at all the heavy industrial.
Well,
sites.
yes, yeah. I'm asking about that one in particular. I think it might take a bit of an effort to determine that for all of them.
Sure. If you'd like, I can pull it up. Give me 1 second. So the parcels that are in red are the heavy industrial zone properties that we discussed would be eligible for this use. Of these sites, several of them are not currently vacant or slated for other types of development, but you just can get a sense of where they are at in the county areas.
And I guess what I'm really curious about is how much floodplain is, I guess, proximate to these areas.
Yeah, I think when we go into potentially rezoning properties, we do take into account surrounding areas, infrastructure, floodplains, things like that. But the floodplain is treated as a sort of like an overlay to our zoning districts. So it has its own standalone regulations that wouldn't be undermined, no matter the zoning. So there's still a lot of setback regulations, and we're
Right.
audited for that as well. So we try to be very careful when it comes to floodplain.
Yeah. No, I don't think I have anything else.
Do you have any advice for us on this?
I do not believe I have any advice. If you have a question, I'm more than happy to answer them. But
this is one of the times when I severely miss Commissioner Thomas from being here, because she's looked at this for many months as part of the Planning Commission. This is very hard for me. I guess I'm worried about the whole future at this point, because allowing this in heavy industrial, what we are hearing about for a specific thing, specific rezone, may not cover what goes on if another group comes in, whether or not another group would come in with, I understand it excludes Hulk crushers, but would it exclude sort of the cutting that goes on? And that's part of what creates sparks, is my understanding. And that some of the metals that can be processed are actually flammable themselves. And so I'm worried about what this does for the future. And when I look at this map that you've shared with us, a lot of those areas are away from where there would be hydrants, is my understanding currently. And even though we've had recommendation from the planning commission, when I look at the note that's here, it's really hard for me knowing that this might be something that goes into effect for the next 50 years sort of thing. And
Maybe
how
I
we
do
get
have a
that
little bit of
reversed.
advice. Maybe if you ask Jackie what is already included in the heavy industrial, that may give some context to what this is adding or not adding to that.
Okay, that's on page 20 of our packet, right?
Maybe a little further down than that. Let me check.
I guess that's just scrap metal.
I'll go ahead and pull that up just a second. So the heavy industrial category is close to the right-hand side of this table. And it's listed as HI. And when it has a P, it lists it as permitted. And when it's blank, it is not permitted. So the heavy industrial category is most used under the category of manufacturing. So I'll go ahead and scroll down to that, and we can go over any of the uses that you want to under this category. And then there's also several in the automotive and transportation category. Sorry, a little difficult to see on the screen.
We can't see it on the screen that we're looking at because the sidebar that comes up with Zoom, sorry. So if you could make it a little smaller,
Oh, sure.
one more, there, thank you. What is CU like under? cement?
Conditional, yeah, it's a conditional use, which means it has one approval at the Board of Zoning Appeals. And this is where the scrap metal processing would go under this category as proposed.
So there are already a lot of uses that involve metals, it looks like.
Yeah, but in quite a different way.
Well, I guess at this point, we call for the vote at this point. So all those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Motion fails. I have to say, that's one of the hardest decisions I've had to make in
Yes.
3 years.
It's difficult. I really don't think it's a good match for this county. I think many other counties have fewer drainage problems, which all of this, and along with the fire suppression problems, it sounds to me like a use that we probably don't really need right now.
Yeah. Okay, well, since we have not passed that, shall we move on to item B? Seems that, is there still a desire for the rezone then, Mr. Parsons? Do you want to go ahead and make a motion, Commissioner Jones?
Okay, the petitioners stating, or the owners stating that they're not desiring to rezone then. So it'll be a withdrawal. Is that confirmed? Okay.
Thank you. So, Mr. Cockrell, we can just, if that's been withdrawn, are we okay then? Okay, thank you.
Move to approve the updated 2022 primary election day polling sites.
Second. Ms. Martin, good morning.
Good morning. You have previously okayed some polling sites for us to this election, but we've had some fallout since then. So we've had to do some shuffling and finding new areas. We've lost 3 locations and we've picked up 2 locations. We're going to use the elections operations, the Napa building, on election day, and we're also going to use North High School for the first time in many years. We're using North High School. So we have every precinct taken care of, but we have changed the sites around.
Any questions?
Yes, can you tell me the location, I mean, more or less the area that the precincts are in that are being moved to Napa?
Yes, I can tell you exactly. Bloomington 3 and 7, Perry 8, 15, and 31, and Bloomington 22.
So for the Bloomington precincts, that's a bit of a little bit further away for them to go.
It is, but North High School has absorbed 3 of the sites. So that does help. And, you know, it is right downtown, great parking.
Yes, it is.
Anything else that we've found in that area, we've used before, and they no longer want to use, for us to use them, or they're not HAVA compliant. So that we were left with basically elections operations.
Yes, well, I guess we're lucky that that is as available as it is.
I actually appreciate seeing the precinct listed for the different polling sites. That's quite helpful. And I know that you'll be sending out postcards to people.
Well,
to let
that
them.
feeds into my other request I have today.
Okay. Is there any public comment on this item? Please state your name.
Dave, sorry about that. Dave Askins with the B Square Bulletin. I just wanted to ask Deputy Clerk Martin if she has the names of the 3 locations that dropped out handy so that I don't have to bug her later in the afternoon. Thanks.
Well, David, listen to how I feel about this. I don't want to burn my bridges. I don't want to say, on Zoom that, hey, these three people or these three businesses failed me this election. I would rather just say that they have declined to be a part of the election, because you never know, I may need them in the future.
And I will remind people that these are the locations for both the primary and the general
That is correct.
2022 election. Is there anybody else in the public that has a comment or a question? Seeing none, call for a vote on the updated 2022 primary election day polling sites. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item.
Move to approve. Yes. Move to approve Effect TV Comcast for primary election advertisement, fund name election, fund number 1215 in the amount of $2,353.
Second, Ms. Martin again.
I think that's self-explanatory. It's for commercials on television that state, what time early voting is, where the early voting is, and to, basically to get out and vote. I think it shows 459 times on different stations that's with Comcast.
I believe we've seen these in past elections, correct?
Yes, we have.
Commissioner Jones, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
Is there any public comment on this? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the contract with Effect TV Comcast for primary election advertisement, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 2-0. Next item, please.
Move to approve Midwest pre-sort agreement for the clerk, fund name election, fund number 1215 in an amount not to exceed $18,710.
Second, again, Ms. Martin.
This is my favorite part of elections, getting that postcard out. We're not mandated to send postcards out when we change precincts, but we feel that it best serves the public. We've designed a postcard that has front and back information. On one side, it tells you about early voting, how to get to the location. It tells you your precinct, and it also tells you your voting location on election day. So we've packed a lot of information on one card. We do have bulk rate mailing, which does help. We are not sending that card to every voter in Monroe County. We're sending the card to every registered household. So everybody won't receive, like if you live in a house with 5 registered voters, you're only going to get one card for that location. Roughly, we have like almost 100,000 people that are registered to vote. 52,000 cards will go out. So we think it's a good cost saving money. Plus it's, advertisement to get out and vote. And the cards are very colorful. They're red, white, and blue.
Excellent. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you for doing this. While it's not required, it certainly is a wonderful service for the voters of Monroe County. And I have certainly frequently been confused about exactly where my polling place is.
I also appreciate this. And I think with students especially, it's important
Yes.
because this is a very sort of unfamiliar place to some of them. So I do appreciate that. I think it's a good move. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, call for the vote on Midwest pre-sort agreement for the clerk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 2-0. Next item.
Move to approve Scam Pro Advantage membership renewal for the clerk. Fund name perpetuation, fund number 1119 in an amount of $473 for 2 years.
Second, Ms. Martin.
Okay, we're going to back off on elections and go to record requests. People in the community make a record request, and sometimes those are housed on microfilm. We have a microfilm reader called ScanPro. It came with a feature, and we knew that after 2 years that we would have to buy this feature, but we didn't realize how much this feature helped us. So now it has come to the time where we have to buy this feature from ScanPro company. It allows us to do a contrast, a size orientation, and an alignment of every page. Now we have to go to every page and do the contrast and alignment. With this feature turned back on, it automatically does that aligning for us, and it's quicker to find records on microfilm and have them printed.
Thank you.
Yeah, that certainly sounds like something not terribly expensive for what it does.
It's very helpful, and it's time. It saves us a lot of time in finding records.
Yeah.
Right. I appreciate that time saving. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, call for the vote on the ScanPro Advantage membership renewal for the clerk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 2-0. Next item, please.
Move to approve WBWB FM 97 agreement for 2022 primary election advertising. Fund name, election, fund number 1215 in an amount of $1,485.
Second. Ms. Martin?
Okay, we're back to elections. During our election cycle, we run a commercial on WBWB. Monday through Friday, it could run anywhere from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 3. And then on Monday through Friday, 3 to 7. I believe they run it for the election cycle 45 times. It tells you where early voting is, the days of early voting, what you'll need to bring to the polls, your state issued ID. Be prepared. If you have something wrong and you can't wait in line, please let someone know so we can take you to the head of the line. So that's that commercial, and we've used it in other elections also.
Thank you.
Yeah, once again, I'd like to thank you for helping the voters out like this. I'm sure it's appreciated.
Yes, I do too. And since we are just about at the last item with you here, what time on next Tuesday does early voting actually start?
It starts at 8 a.m. Oh, let me get my handy dandy postcard. Okay, April the 5th through April the 8th, it starts at 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and that's at Elections Operations, 302 South Walnut Street. This is an example of how it looks on the front. Can you see that?
It's a bit blurry, but
it is blurry. And then the back has more information also. It's just a wonderful postcard. I'm so pleased with it. And then it talks about Election Day, May 3rd, 6 to 6. And this precinct will be voting, and it has an arrow pointing to where you vote. So yes, next Tuesday, 8 a.m., the old Napa building.
excellent. Is there any public comment on this item, the agreement with WBWB? Seeing none, call for the vote on the WBWB FM 97 agreement for the 2022 primary election advertising. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 2-0. Next item. Thank you.
Move to approve Steve's Roofing and Sheet Metal for election operations. Fund name to be decided and the fund number. The amount is $5,500.
And I believe we have Mr. Crone here to talk to us today.
Good morning, everyone. Greg Cron, Monroe County Facilities and Fleet Manager. Continuing on with the deputy clerk's election theme, this item I have for you this morning is in regards to 302 South Walnut Street Elections Operations, formerly known as Napa. We've identified three key issues that are creating some water leakage coming inside the building. One of them structural to the block. The other is gutter and roofing membrane that is aged and drawn back from the edges, which is letting water come into the actual wall structure of the block. The building is a 16-inch open block design, so it's allowing the water to get inside those cores. So this is a quote from Steve's Roofing for $5,500 to correct the membrane issue. He's going to put in a new 12-inch strip around the perimeter in the areas that are leaking. He's also going to repair the damaged guttering on the west side of the building. And he will also take care of installing flashing on top of the block structure that's allowing water inside.
Excellent. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, thank you for discovering this and taking care of it so promptly. This is the kind of thing that if it gets ignored, it can turn into a major problem.
Exactly. So head it off at the pass while we can.
Excellent, excellent. I appreciate this also. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, call for the vote on Steve's Roofing and Sheet Metal for elections operations. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 2-0.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Move to approve BTEC LLC service agreement for Parks and Recreation. Fund name, County General and non-reverting. Fund numbers 1,000 and 1179 in an amount not to exceed $6,000.
Second, and I believe we have Ms. Whitmer here with us today. You can move that microphone down, yeah.
This is for BTEC. It is a on-call services to perform annual fire extinguisher inspection and correct security equipment failures, not to exceed $6,000. Expires April 1st, 2023. Any questions?
I'm just very pleased that this is being taken care of.
Oh, thank you.
I was surprised at last week's Parks board meeting, how many fire extinguishers you guys actually have.
Well, I didn't get a count, but it is in the double digits.
I think it was more than that even. Yeah.
We have every truck, every vehicle, every facility. We have a lot of fire extinguishers.
Yeah. Yes.
I just have one question because we actually already have a contract with BTEC for most of our buildings.
Yes, unfortunately, we were left off that contract.
Okay, so does this add them to that contract? Because we would want to make sure that.
It doesn't affect your contract whatsoever.
Yeah, no, what I was wondering is, did you talk with Greg or Eric about this?
Yes, they all know that we were left off.
Correct. Okay. I'm following that part. I know, I guess, but I just, as long as they were, and what I'm trying to ask is adding you to our current contract. I didn't know if that would be a less expensive approach, or if if it doesn't really matter. So, I mean, we want to obviously make sure that you have this service, but I was just wondering if it would have been easier just to add you to our current contract.
I don't know, but we can, if we keep this, we can also get our security systems, cameras corrected and fixed. If you would like, we can hold off on the fire extinguishers and ask them if you would like.
I would not hold off on the fire extinguishers.
Okay, correct. Yeah, don't hold off on that.
I believe they're giving us a very reasonable.
Okay.
It's not a lot. They've been very good to us.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
But next time, we would love to be included in the big contract.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't think that we can't talk to them and see if we can get them combined or something like that. I just would not delay starting fire extinguisher service.
Excellent.
Is there any public comment on this item? Thank you, Ms. Purdy. Seeing none, call for a vote on the BTEC LLC service agreement for Parks and Recreation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 2-0. Next item.
Go Express, move to approve Go Express Travel Service Agreement for Parks and Recreation. Fund name, non-reverting, fund number 1179 in an amount not to exceed $6,000.
Second, Ms. Whitmer again?
Yes, this is for transportation for recreational youth and adult trips, day camp trips. Unfortunately, we used to use rural transit, but since they have received a grant, they no longer can service our needs. So this is the next best thing that we can find, and it will not exceed $6,000. Each trip will be approved in advance, each destination in transportation fee. So if we don't believe it's reasonable, or if the gas prices increase, we will cancel that trip.
And this covers some of the camp stuff that you have over the summer for kids
Yes,
as well,
it's for
right?
summer day camp at Curse Farm Park. We do, the kids do travel. They have a lot of fun.
Well, it's too bad that rural transit can't do it anymore, but I'm glad to see you found an alternative that's not too expensive.
And it's my understanding that the fees for the activities will cover the cost pretty much.
That is our goal always.
Right. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, call for the vote on the Go Express Travel Service Agreement for Parks and Recreation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 2-0. Next item.
Move to approve Nathaniel Hancock Agreement for Parks and Recreation. Fund name, County General and non-reverting, fund numbers 1,000 and 1178 and 1179 in an amount not to exceed $5,000.
Second, Ms. Whitmer.
Yes, Mr. Hancock's been working with our department for years now. We've talked to Eric Evans from TSD, and he believes this is a very reasonable rate, and it expires on March 1st, 2025. Mr. Hancock helps us with our program database, our recreational, and also our financial database. And if we do have some questions with the website problems, he is always there to answer them.
Any comment?
Thank you.
I understand that he has been with you since sort of the start of all the website, and
he's been quite an asset. People think that computers are easy. They're not. And you can find computer people. It's not. And to find someone who actually lives in the community and who is not moving away is a big bonus.
right, and he's familiar with all of the things that are back in the background, I guess is the best way to say it. Okay, is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, call for the vote on Nathaniel Hancock Agreement for Parks and Recreation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 2-0. Thank you, Ms. Whitmer.
Thank you.
Next item.
Move to approve change order to OSER Land Surveying LLC agreement. Fund name Surveyors Corner Perpetuation, fund number 1202 in the amount of $235.
Second, and we have Mr. Randolph here with us.
Yes, hi, let me just get signed in.
Thank you.
This is my first time back in the Nate Hill room for official business, so I'm very happy to see so many familiar faces, and today was a rough one, and I really appreciate your position and compassion when providing over difficult decisions, so thank you. But now at business, I'm here, it's pretty simple. We have a change order to permit OSER Mapping and Surveying LLC to remove a 30-inch tree on top of a monument out in the woods. So I think one thing is typically they could kind of triangulate or calc to this position in typical work if they're performing for like a landowner. But since they're performing a service agreement for my office and we're doing a perpetuation survey, we need to remove the tree so we can tie that monument off and kind of have that record delivered. So it's pretty simple. So we would like to pay Ms. Ozer for the work in the amount of $235. The amount might have been a little higher, but the landowner was excited about this and wanted the wood to burn. So they're going to help with the hauling off. So we saved $200 because the first one I saw was about 450 and this one's about 235. So a little more than 200, but that was cool. And they were excited, and now they're excited to have some wood to burn when it gets cold outside. I do have one additional question. This is something that we may encounter here and there. So I've talked with legal about maybe building in just a bit of flexibility to address this on the fly, because if this impeded their workflow, it would really be a lot more costly for them to, stop working, call it a day. Since this didn't impede their workflow and they were able to move to another job, it worked out well for everyone. So I'm kind of just wanting an indication if it's okay to come back and discuss adding a little flexibility, something not to exceed $1,000, just in case we encounter, a tree on a monument, or maybe a monument that's in, disarray, or, not as sturdy as we would like in the ground, and we want them to, put like a Harrison monument, which is a large task. And so outside of the request here, I just want some indication if this is okay for me to come back and discuss. Okay, because we created a template kind of sorts for this agreement, and I'll work with legal and then bring it back to you at a work session or at a regular session.
You can bring it to a work session, but I think also we'll have to work with legal to see if this just falls under a regular service contract.
I think it would fall under a contract that you guys would have to approve. I mean, it's for work, it's for services. I guess I'm envisioning kind of what we've done with the highway department and things, that we give some wiggle room into the agreement for ancillary use, up to $1,000 seems to make sense.
Yeah, because, just getting to you, it took about 2 weeks, because then we had to have the change order vetted by legal, and then the deadlines with getting on the agenda. So that would really, impede, a professional's workflow. So we'll work with Dave and run up the chain, see if Jeff has any comments, and bring it back to you if that seems appropriate.
I think it seems perfectly appropriate. And I would just add on there that, we've heard stories, and I think you guys have heard stories about surveyors and work and how long it's taking to get things through. So we certainly don't want to delay our surveyors' work.
Yeah. Okay, is there any public comment on this item?
I actually had a question.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And it may be a kind of silly question. Could you describe these monuments to me? I think what I imagined, it's a little hard to figure out how a tree would grow on it.
It fell. The trees fell on top of it.
Okay.
Interesting enough, we have a monument that we just tied off that we're going to take to our review board that had a tree that was going to grow and disturb it. So we talked with the property owner. They were quite fine with us dropping the tree, and we just recently dropped, it's about 6-inch tree, just so it doesn't kind of, grow and, compromise our monuments. And the monuments come in all sizes. I think we have a car axle or some type of car part buried in the ground that's been tied off as an official monument. Axle, that's what it was. So, but it's basically memorializing that spot on the ground with a monumentation.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense to me. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Okay, at this point, I call for a vote on the change order to Oser Land Surveying LLC service agreement. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 2-0. Next
Thank
item,
you.
please. Thank you.
Move to approve NDOT change order number 4 for Hunters Creek Road, Phase 2 and 3. Fund name Hunters Creek Road, Phase 2 and 3. Fund number 8163. In the amount of $34,751.
Second, Ms. Ridge.
Good morning. So the change order is kind of duplicated to a change order number 3 that you previously approved. We ran into 2 additional sinkholes being formed, and they'll replace it and fix the repair and add more riprap and geotextile in that area. It's also a participating change order with NDOT, so it would be reimbursed at 80%.
Excellent. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm curious, when you do things like this, does it actually prevent the sinkholes from getting any bigger?
That's a good question. I'm to assume that it does. And we use this same method in Hunters Creek Phase 1 when we constructed it 2 years ago. And we have not seen the problem arise in those areas that we had to do the same fix.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have any questions or concerns. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none. Sorry, I've got to get back to that page. Call for the vote on NDOT change order number 4 for Hunters Creek Road Phase 2 and 3. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes 2-0. Next item, please.
Move to approve Rumpke Waste and Recycling Services, fund name, bid deposit and bond holding, fund number 1108, in the amount of $210.
I think it's a different amount.
200, I'm so sorry. $210,000. It's a bit of a difference there.
I'll second that one. Ms. Ridge again.
So Rumpke has been completing the process through our planning department for a new facility on southwest of Bloomington on Production Drive. So one of the conditions of that approval was also putting in a passing blister on Production Drive for the additional truck traffic. And also we've been working with the facility to come up with a bond amount and agreement for the maintenance of Production Drive during the construction of the new facility, and then also with the anticipated increase of truck traffic. The bond will begin on April 1st, 2023 and end on March 31st, 2031, which is an 8-year agreement. The bond is in the amount of $210,000, and the inspections will occur every 6 months with the representative of the Highway Department and representative with Rumpke. We typically usually take pictures in these types of incidents so we can have before and after and during the process. So we would just ask you to approve this agreement.
Thank you.
No questions, no comments.
So if there's something that's found wrong during the inspection, because this goes 8 years out, what's the process then for getting a correction made?
You can typically, a lot of times we don't cash in a bond if we can work with the developer and then they have the repairs done at their cost. If we don't get, typically if a developer doesn't finish a project in the timely manner, then that's when we are allowed to cash in that bond and use those funds to make the repairs. But I will say, going back and forth with Kevin Meyer, with Rumpke and our engineer and our project manager, they've been very responsive. They've been really good to work with on coming up with this agreement. So I don't anticipate having any issues with working with them.
Thank you. That means you'll have to stick around for 8 years then.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
Oh, that's a minimum of 8 years, sorry.
Yeah. Gosh, I'd hate to think of how old I'll be then.
Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, call for a vote on the Rumpke Waste and Recycling Services bond holding. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 2-0. Next item, please.
Move to approve Smith Design Group supplemental agreement for the Vernal Pike Trail connection to Detmer Park. Fund name, West Side Economic Development Area, fund number 4920, in the amount of $4,900.
Second, Ms. Ridge.
So this is a piece of a trail that we've been working on for many years. We finally received agreements and with the railroad that you approved, I believe, last month. This is for the additional design and survey work that we've had to have completed by Smith Design Group. So this is actually a supplemental to their original agreement that was signed a few years ago.
Any comment?
No, I'm just pleased to see that that's taking place.
Long time in coming.
Yeah.
This is sort of a 10-year project, right? I mean,
Well, this is like in the last month, this is the first movements that we've really had since 2016.
Oh, my.
So, and when the project began before then, of course, but going, of course, COVID slowed things down, but yeah, finally coming to design agreements with the railroad company and getting it to this point is great. So.
is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none. Call for the vote on Smith Design Group supplemental agreement for the Vernal Pike Trail connection to Detmer Park. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes 2-0. We have no appointments for today. In terms of announcements, do you have anything you wish to announce?
No, I don't.
I would just like to remind everyone that early voting starts next Tuesday, April the 5th at 8 a.m. at our new facility at 302 South Walnut Street. There is a blood drive later today from 1 to 6 p.m. You can sign up through the redcross.org website. That'll be out at Ivy Tech. There are other blood drives scheduled for next week on Monday, April the 4th from 10 to 3 and Tuesday, April the 5th from 1 to 6. Again, you can go to redcross.org to sign up for those. I want to remind everyone also that township assistance is available through our township trustees. Everyone in the county has a township trustee that is able to work with them. So if you're running behind in your rent and your utilities, you're facing other financial challenges, please contact your township trustee. Their contact information is on our website. They're also found in our weekly meeting notes. And I would like to share with you all something that happened that was fun for me last week. I was here in the courthouse and I was going down the steps between the second and third floor, and I noticed somebody coming up who was kind of looking around, wandering around, and I said, are you looking for something? And it turns out that the woman's grandfather had been a judge and sat at this particular bench to issue decisions that when the Nat U Hill room was used as a courtroom. And so we came in here together. She was Judge Rogers's granddaughter, and she was thrilled to see where her grandfather had issued decisions. It was a very, very uplifting kind of moment, which is really fun. So wanted to share that with people. Our next meeting is April the 6th here in the Nat U Hill room. It'll be hybrid again. I don't believe we have anything scheduled for our work session. Is that still the same? Okay, well, with that, then this meeting is adjourned and we'll see everyone next week. Thank you.